Good afternoon. A little bit late getting started because we had some technical issues, but with the information today, I think Detroiters will feel is definitely worth waiting for. This week, you are going to get in the mail your property assessment notice in 2022, which normally is not something you're looking forward to, but with the news today, it's pretty remarkable. It's basically all good news for Detroiters. So last year, the average home value in the city of Detroit went up 31%, something that we have never seen before. And normally, being told your home value went up 31%, you'd be afraid of your taxes. But the taxes to our residents are only going up 3%. And that's the bottom line for the message. And that's because of the Michigan Constitution. The Michigan Constitution has a provision that keeps people in their homes even when times are good. And the Michigan Constitution says no matter how much your home value goes up, your actual taxes can only go up at the rate of inflation as long as you stay in your house. You stay in your house 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and your taxes will only go up 1, 2, 3% a year. We've got neighborhoods that had a 60% increase in property values last year. The Golf Course District, East English Village, Chandler Park, Corktown. But even if your neighborhood went up 60% last year, you get a 3% tax increase. That's the effect of the Michigan Constitution. And so we're taking the time to explain this so when you get the notices, you understand what they are. So this notice is going to come in. It got sent out yesterday. You should see it in the next week. It's not a bill. Don't pay it. You'll get your summer bill in July. It's not a bill. But this is telling you what your assessment is. Normally, it gives you a chance to challenge your assessment. The important thing that you want to look for is the line that says, how much are your taxes going up? This particular one says they're going up $32. And I want to take a minute to show you how to read the chart so that when you get it, you know what you're looking at and you don't panic when you see how much your home value went up. So what you have on your chart is something that's going to say assessed value. On this one, I'm not sure if you can read it, but it shows it went from $17,000 to $22,000, which won't be unusual in this city. It'd be like a 30% increase. And you say, oh no, that looks like a big jump. And it is. But the key line you want is the line above it. And it's called taxable value. Because the only amount you have to pay taxes on is that lower taxable value. And in this case, it went from $11,200 to $11,500. It didn't go up $5,000. It went up $300. And I'm going to show you in more detail how this works. Here's what happened across the city of Detroit. Property values rose from the east side to the west side to southwest. So on this map, the light green, they went up 1 to 30%. The dark green went up 10 to 30%. The blue went up 30 to 60%. And the dark blue went up 60% or more. The red or orange went down. The only place went down was down where the new Gordie Howe Bridge is being built and a little stretch along the riverfront where some things were taken down. But here's the interesting thing. The dark green is 10 to 30%. The blue is more than 30% increase in the last year. When I ran for mayor in 2013, I ran on a slogan that said, every neighborhood has a future. I don't know how many people laughed at me about that. Every neighborhood, come on. There's only going to be wealth in a few areas. Look at this. The light blue is over 30% growth. It is the far east side. It is the far west side. It is southwest. It is the center of the city. This is the kind of map that we want. Not something that says downtown and midtown went up and everything else went down, but one end of the city to another, we saw property values grow. And in this city, our primary source of wealth from generation to generation has been in our home ownership. For most families, that is your wealth. And a lot of families are far better off today than they were just a few years ago. So just give you an example of some of the neighborhoods, what we saw. Morningside, 25%. If you've been in that neighborhood, the idea that property values we probably had 40% of them vacant 8 years ago. That they could jump like this in a year is remarkable. Pulaski in southwest Detroit jumped 26. Green Acres in northwest Detroit, 26. Warrendale on the far west side, 27. Russell Woods, you're going to get a chance to hear from their neighborhood association president, jumped 36%. What a great neighborhood. Grandmont jumped 47. East English Village jumped 63%. But whether you jumped 25% or you jumped 63%, your property taxes are going up 3%. That's all they're going up as long as you maintained your house. And so 203 out of 208 neighborhoods saw an increase. This is what every neighborhood has a future means when 203 out of 208 are participating in the improvement. And I will take you back in time, my first year in 2014. Here's what the same map looked like. Everything, red and yellow, were property values dropping. They dropped from one corner of the city to the other. Outside of downtown and midtown, everything in the city was dropping. Here's where we've gone. I believed when I started that even though there were a lot of people who said, write off these neighborhoods, forget about them, there's too much vacancy, you can't do anything, we've gone from everybody declining to everybody growing. This is the kind of city that we have been trying to build. And so a number of you will remember my very first month in office, January 2014, my first press conference. We cut property tax assessments in this city 20% across the board. They had been too high in 11 and 12 and 13. I campaigned against the overtaxation, and we cut them. And as a result, here's what you had. And this, to me, tells you what our story has been. In 2012, the residential homes in this city were worth $5 billion. They dropped down around 2014, 2015 to about $2.5 billion. They hit bottom there. And everybody was saying, last one out of the city, turn out the lights. Everybody's moving out. They're moving to the suburbs. With this year, we're back up to $5 billion. It's taken a while, but we have recovered in this city back to where we were before the recession hit in 2012. If you stayed with this city, you didn't move out. My very first speech I said, please give us time, stay with us. You have done extremely well. But here's the interesting thing. When we were at the low point and we started to climb, property values in the city have basically doubled in the last 5 years. But the Michigan Constitution says that even if your property values are doubling, your taxes aren't doubling, because your taxes each year can only go up the rate of inflation. So as Detroit outperformed nearly all of America in the last 5 years in increase in property value, here's what's happened. On this chart, the gray bar is your assessed value. It's what your house is worth from 2015 to 2022, and you can see what's happened. The red bar is what you're paying in taxes. And basically, inflation has been 1%, 2%, 3%. So it's average 2%. So for the last 5 years, your home values have gone like this, but what you pay in taxes has gone here. So today, what you have in almost every case is your taxable value is far below your property. And so we've had to listen to some nonsense recently that says Detroiters are overtaxed today. You can see from that, it's absolute nonsense. The truth is, there was a time way back here in 13 when the red bar, the taxes were too high, but today, our taxable value is way below the market value, and you will see that. The only way you are likely to be overassessed today is if you bought your house in the last year or two, because if you buy your house, the cap comes off, you pop back up. And so you will have people who bought a house in the last year or two who should be looking carefully at their assessments. And anybody's entitled to appeal their assessment, but when your taxable value is here and your assessment is there, it is extremely unlikely that anybody who's been in a house for a period of years has got a taxable value anywhere near the assessed value. And so I never thought I'd be standing here saying property values soared from Detroit from one end to another, and your taxes are only going up 3%. but that's what we're here today. So when you get your notice, take a close look at it. And with that, I'll turn it over to the city's chief assessor, somebody who came in at a time when we had absolute chaos in the assessor's office, rebuilt it with modern computers, modern equipment, modern staff. And so I'll turn it over to our chief assessor, Alvin Horhn. Alvin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor pointed out, we are in the midst of a 7-year run of increased values across the city of Detroit. For the last 5 years, those values have been uniform across every neighborhood, every sector, every district in this city. It is generational wealth that's being acquired by Detroiters. Your home, for most of us, is the most important investment you'll ever have. Those Detroiters who stayed the course, who were able to stay in the city, have seen the recovery of the wealth that was lost during the Great Recession. But the same token, the taxes are capped, as the mayor has pointed out several times. No one is being overtaxed. Not this run of increased assessments, this run of increased market value is not leading to a run in increased taxes. Under state law, your taxes are capped as long as you own your property. They'll uncap once you sell your property, and in that instance, the assessment will come up, the taxable value will come up to what the assessment is. In those instances, we encourage taxpayers to take advantage of their rights to appeal property taxes. Next week, the city of Detroit will begin the longest and most comprehensive property tax review period in the state of Michigan. It starts with the assessor's review. February 1st through February 22nd, 3 weeks, a very informal process where taxpayers, where property owners can come to the assessor's office and question how their property is valued. We will sit down with you. We will explain the process. We will answer any questions you have. If we need to go to your property, we will go to your property to assure you that we have valued your property according to the law and according to market value. If you're satisfied with the decision of the assessor's review, that ends it. That ends the appeal process. If you have further questions, if you want to go further, then the second tier of the review period starts on March 8th this year, and that is the March Board Review. 9 members who are appointed by Detroit City Council to hear property appeals by Detroiters. It's a more formal process than the assessor's review, but I encourage everyone who owns property to take advantage of your right to question how your property is valued and to understand how wealth is generated, how the assessment process works. I think we've got a few more slides here. Oh, I got the clicker. Okay, sorry. Okay. As I just said, the assessor's review is 3 weeks. It starts February 1st. It goes through the 22nd. You can appeal by mail, by email, or fill an online application. Those property owners who wish to talk to someone in the assessor's office, they will have the opportunity through a teleconference. If you're satisfied with the decision of the assessor's review, that ends the process. If you wish to go further, if you have other questions, then you go to the March Board Review. That starts March 8th, ends March 26th. All residential property appeals have to go to the assessor's review to be heard by the March Board Review. Commercial, industrial, and personal property owners can go straight to the Michigan Tax Tribunal. As I said, you can appeal online, you can appeal by email, or you can send a letter to our office, but we have to get that letter by February 22nd. I stole this from John Roach a few years ago. He made a comment that the assessor's office went from first to worst, and from worst to first in 5 years. In April 2014, the State Tax Commission issued a corrective action order to the city of Detroit because of irregularities with assessment administration and valuation practices. Literally, they seized control of the city's assessment roll. The way the city decided to fix those problems was the largest and most complex reappraisal in the state of Michigan history. 4 years, $8.375 million. Every parcel in this city, all 409,000, were reviewed either by a person or using remote data verification. In addition to the reappraisal, the city also launched a restructuring of the assessor's office to address the issues that the mayor spoke about when he first came in the office. During that restructuring, we increased our staff complement by a third. And this happened during a recession. This happened while the city was fighting bankruptcy, because everyone knew how important it was to fix the problems in the assessor's office. They increased the number of staff. They increased the certification of the appraisal staff. They made sure that every appraiser in that staff was certified. Most of our clerical support is certified as well. Significant investments were in our GIS layers, in our aerial and street level imagery, and in staff training. In March 2017, the first phase of the reappraisal was completed. The residential properties were brought off override. And for the first time since 2003, the residential property values in the city of Detroit were being generated by market data. In June of 2017, the State Tax Commission returned control of the assessment role to the city of Detroit. That occurred 2 years earlier than was expected. And it was done because we had demonstrated over the previous 2 years our commitment to correcting the problems that had been discovered. March 2019, as I said, the largest reappraisal in the history of the state was completed. A few months later, 5 years after the State Tax Commission seized this city's assessment role, the Michigan Assessor's Association named the city of Detroit as the best assessing jurisdiction in the state of Michigan. That was a remarkable achievement in 5 years. Just last year, the Assessor's Office completed its audit of minimum assessing requirements. That's a test that the State Tax Commission gives to every jurisdiction to determine if they are compliant with state law. Most jurisdictions, more than 80% of them, fail the first time around. The largest and the most complex jurisdiction in this state passed the first time around. This just speaks again about the assessor's review. It's an informal process. Residential property owners have to start at the assessor's review. Commercial, industrial, personal property owners can go directly to the Michigan Tax Tribunal. The March Board review starts March 8th through the 26th. Appointed by Detroit City Council, they have the authority to hear property valuation appeals in the city. And finally, the Michigan Tax Tribunal. That is the final step in the appeals process in the state of Michigan. The MTT is an administrative court of the state of Michigan. The property owner has to present evidence to support their position. An appeal with the tribunal has to be filed by July 31st for residential properties, and by May 31st for all other property owners, commercial, industrial, and personal property. So I'd like to introduce a gentleman from Mr. Chuney, who's here to talk about the property values and the increases in his area. Thank you, sir.
Hello, God bless you. My name is Melvin Chuney. I'm the president of the Russellwood Sullivan Area Association, and I'm so glad to be here today because the property values, as he showed in that chart, they've risen 36%, and those are 1,100 homes in the heart of the city, and it's a historical district to boot. So I'm pleased to say that because I lived there and I purchased the home in 2013, and I must say those charts are very accurate because my property value has skyrocketed actually, and my taxes, very limited increase. And just to testify to what he promised in the beginning, and everyone didn't believe he would come in the neighborhoods, he's been in my neighborhood and he's met with our citizens and he's listened to us and he's assisted us or made it available for us to get assistance and everything. And the development is just, it's crucial around these neighborhoods. And we had our park renovated, as due to the mayor and his staff. We have this Dexter Street being renovated, which hasn't been done in years, a pop-up site, which he's given us a seat at the table in the decision-making. We also have the Old St. Cecilia's Church being renovated. We have a trade school in our area now, and we have several construction projects surrounding us, so we're right in the hub of it. So I thank God to be here in the city and to see this turnaround, because I'm here for life. I'm a retired Detroit neighborhood police officer who actually worked in the area that I live in now. And it's the area I always wanted to live in even as a kid. And I really am impressed with how this administration has handled everything over the last 8 years. It was a process, but it is working, and it's proven right now because there are very few homes even available in Russell Woods, and we had so many empty homes when I first purchased a home, and just people of every race and color. It doesn't even matter. We're just all together. We're coming together, and I thank God for the mayor and his process that we stuck with and followed, and it's working, and I thank him for it. Thank you.
You know, I sat with the Russell Woods neighbors in 2013, 2014. One of the first neighborhoods on the west side that African Americans could buy homes early on. And I sat with people who had talked about being in the neighborhood 20, 30 years and all the vacant houses, and that they could at that point probably not sell their house at any price. And to see what's happened, the house is being restored, the property value is soaring. But Russell Woods is one of the great rising neighborhoods in the city, and if you're looking for a place to move into the city, Melvin will give you a personal guide to the neighborhood. With that, we'll take any questions.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
From Channel 7. So 3 questions for you. First is, could you list out some of the big changes that a city has experienced over the years that have helped property value increase?
I don't think there's any question that when you demolish 17,000 burned out homes and you renovate 8,000 vacant homes and move families in, that has a huge effect. The street lights being on, the police and fire showing up when you call. The parks, I think, have been improved in a very significant way from one end to another. And I think our Department of Neighborhoods, we've paired up with block club captains around the city for their own visions for their own neighborhoods. And the neighborhoods that have come back fastest have been the neighborhoods with the strongest leadership out of those communities. And it's been a real joy the last couple of years to be with the folks who were so worried about the future 8 years ago and to see how excited they are now. Now we're talking about cleaning out their alleys and turning their vacant lots into gardens. It's a different day.
The 3% rise, is that only for the existing homeowners, or is it for the new ones?
Yeah, so if you owned your house a year ago and you still own it, your property taxes anywhere in Michigan can only go up with inflation, which in this state was 3% last year. Now, if you bought your house in 2021 and the house, you bought it for $80,000, you'll pay taxes on $80,000. If your seller had held on to it for another year or two, they'd pay taxes at a lower amount. That's the way it works all across the state. The only time the taxes pop up are when you sell the house.
And I think the last question that I have for you is, what about folks who can't afford even that 3% rise? Is there anything being done to help them?
Yeah, so we have on our website the HOPE exemption. So for our senior citizens and people of lower income, you can actually get an exemption. I think you make below in the range of $30,000 a year. The details are all on the city website. You can get an exemption either partly or entirely for property taxes, and it's designed in particular for our seniors who, in many cases, paid for their houses when they were working. They're now retired, and we don't want them to be forced out because of property taxes. In many cases, they can get 100% exemption, and so I would encourage anybody who you feel like you're below the poverty level, go on the city website, find out about the HOPE exemption, call us, and we'll help you through the process.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
Bryce Huffman, Bridge, Detroit. I attended a Coalition for Property Tax Justice virtual event on Saturday regarding the issue of overassessment. And it's clear from that event and the number of Detroiters who showed up that a lot of Detroiters still feel like overassessment is an issue. What do you have to say to them? And can they expect a new plan from your administration to address the past overassessment?
And so there is no question assessments were too high from 2011 to 2013. I said that every day on the campaign trail. And I'm continuing to talk to council about a resolution. But any suggestion that taxes are illegally high today is just utter nonsense, as those charts show.
All right. And Council President Sheffield stated that the city's financial situation is something that we have to always look at when it comes to figuring out the best solution to help residents with the past overassessments. What are some of the challenges you face as mayor when it comes to solving the past issues, and what are some outside entities that might be able to help with that?
Again, Council President Sheffield and I talked about this yesterday. I think we were close to a resolution a year or two ago, and I'm optimistic that the council leadership and the administration will reach a solution that will work for everybody.
All right, thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Eli Newman, WDET News. So before I got here, I was looking at the Wayne County Department of Equalization, and they have a column part of their reports where they compare the taxable value, which is the where we get these property bills from, versus the SEV, the state equalized value, which is the value of the home. So they do this comparative ratio over the last 10 years or so, and it says that in 2019, 2018, that rate was about 62% or more than 62%. And I guess I was wondering that, given that typically when these kinds of assessments happen, there's that 50, the state constitution puts it at 50%, that these home values should be, you shouldn't be assessed, your taxable value shouldn't be any more than 50% of what that SEV is.
You're confusing
Okay.
two different things. So SEV is 50% of the value. Taxable value is the gray and red chart that I just showed. So that could be 30%, it could be 90%.
Okay, sorry, can you elaborate on that?
So taxable value is the value at which you are taxed. It's not 50%, right? Alvin, I'm right on this, aren't I?
Correct, yes, sir.
So you're confusing two different things. SEV is 50%. Taxable value, I don't know, were you here earlier?
So
So taxable value is the value at which you are going to be taxed. Those red lines there are the taxable value in the city. So let's say that in 2015, my house was worth $20,000. The next year, my taxable value can only go up 2%. So it would be $20,400 because that was inflation. My property values might have gone up 50%. So my SEV would be at 30,000 or half of 30,000. My taxable value would go up 2%. It doesn't have anything to do with 50%. It's the amount that you can be taxed at. And you can see what the line is at this point in the city. I don't know there's ever been a point in the city's history where the taxable value has ever been this far below the market value. I'm sure it's never happened before. The only way this could happen is if you came out of a severe dip in a recession, and every year the property values are going up 50 and 20%, the taxes are going up 2%.
So I guess I think that's one of the arguments that members of the coalition of property tax justice make, is that there is this chasm between the actual these ratios of your taxable value versus your SEV. So that when you take that number, the taxable value divided by the SEV, that number should be around 50%, but you're saying
in Washington, I resent when people make up stories despite the fact that the facts have disproven the claim for 2 years, and we're still discussing election results that we know aren't true. The same thing is true here. These are the facts. The facts are Detroiters are being taxed at this level, and their homes are now at this level. There was a time back in 2013 it was a problem. They're mixing things that have no relation. But today, there is no way that the taxable value in Detroit anywhere approaches your real value. It just doesn't. And that's why they sued us a year ago. The federal court dismissed them in the first hearing. But I got to deal with the misinformation that's put out there, and obviously you can see how it gets there.
Right. So in any case, those kinds of assessment ratio studies are something that members people who are concerned about this issue have been calling for. So does the city publish those kinds of studies, and where?
All of our data is public. Alvin, you want to talk about it? He just got done showing you the state of Michigan is certified what this assessor's department is doing today. It is accurate. The accurate information is coming here. The inaccurate information is coming from those with a political agenda, but go ahead.
Sir, keep in mind, taxable value is not a component of the assessment ratio. The assessment ratio is simply the assessed value divided by the sales value. So you mentioned county equalization reports. Keep in mind, we're at the start of the assessment cycle. The county gives every jurisdiction in the county their starting ratio. And we have the next 4 months to make sure we're at 50%. Now, right now, our residential ratio is at 49.64%. So we are well within the constitutional limit, 49.5 to 50.49. So, as the mayor said, there's a lot of noise out there. All of our data, we're an open book. The sales that we use are on the city's website. Our sales ratio studies are on the city's website. The studies that the county equalization director performs to ensure that the city of Detroit is compliant with state law, it's on the Wayne County website. We are fully compliant with state law. Now, we have no problem with having an honest discussion about assessment practices in Detroit, but it has to be an honest discussion about the facts and about the laws and the standards that we're required to follow, which are the laws of the state of Michigan. We've been verified by the county, we've been verified by the state. We're doing everything we have to do, and we're supposed to be doing.
Sure. And again, just given that the city is extending that period for review, for people to make that, take it in front of the board, is that reflective of trends that we've seen in the past where more people are actually trying to, fight kind of what they've seen from the assessor?
Well, we've actually seen a decrease from the height of 2014, 2015, 2016, the number of people who appeal. But there's 400,000 parcels in Detroit. Last year, we had 4,000 people appeal to the assessor's review. More than half of those appeals were settled. They didn't go to the March Board review. At the March Board review, almost every one of the assessor's valuations were upheld by the March Board review. Only 67 or so were overturned by the Board review. So we take a lot of pride, we take a lot of effort, there's a lot of resources available to us. No one's going to claim it's 100%. It can't be 100%. But the city's put the resources into the assessor's office, and the mayor has made it quite clear, get it right, get it right, get it right. We have the longest appeals period in the state, and we want everybody in the city to come and ask us, how did you value our property? You may not like the answer, but at least you'll understand it.
So let's be clear on the process. If you are on every other city in the state that I know of, you go to the March Board of Review, and if you're not happy, you go to the state. The city of Detroit, to my knowledge, is the only one that set up an informal assessor's review. And so I've done this. Back when I was a lawyer, this is in the 80s, this has been around that long, you go in, and instead of having to have 9 people sitting around a table in a big hearing, you can sit down with an assessor and say, here's my house, here are some pictures of it, here's why I don't think it's right. And since I've been here, I have directed the assessor's department to make that informal assessor's review fair and let the taxpayers get their resolution there. Don't make them go through that formal board of review. And what Mr. Horhn and the team have done, they've done a good job at it, because as he indicated, very few people who went to the board of review had anything overturned. And so what Detroit does is give you more opportunity to appeal your assessments than any other city. You can come in to start with in an informal conversation with the assessors, and I can tell you in those first informal meetings, the assessors are trying to get it done. They don't want you to have to go appeal anyplace else. They want to work it out with you right there and whatever's fair.
Sure. And just lastly, that 7-year run that we've been talking about where property values have increased, does that coincide with a growing number of home sales?
Certainly the home sales have increased. I don't know about this last year with COVID, but we've seen more mortgages, we've seen more home repairs, we've seen a lot of positive things, and it coincides, with a whole lot of department heads for the last 8 years been doing a heck of a job improving city services.
Okay, thank you.
A couple quick questions from the Detroit Free Press. How many assessment notices have gone out?
The exact number is 399.87.
Okay,
Don't ask me
fantastic.
how I keep that number in my head.
That's
but yeah.
amazing. Okay, you don't walk away. What documents or information should people include in their appeal? I'm guessing she means the formal appeal, not the informal conversation.
Well, I'll start, because the type of information is the same. I'll start with the assessor's review. It depends entirely on why you're asking us to reduce the value. And generally, it's either the condition of the house, there's some type of damage we can't see externally. So we need to either come inside, or you need to take pictures and show us. Or it's the condition of the neighborhood. There's a burnt out shell next to me. There's vacant lots across the street. This neighborhood is so run down, I could never sell this house for what you're saying it's worth. So those are the two things. We tell people, bring pictures, bring pictures, bring pictures. Bring pictures of your property, bring pictures of the neighborhood. Generally speaking, it's one of those two issues. It's either some type of internal damage that we can't see, or it's the condition of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much.